So thank you both for coming to really put some of these concepts together for us. It's wonderful to have you for this discussion. Your Excellency, I want to start with you. Because your background really, both as an artist, both understanding the private sector, and then going into the public sector, so bringing a lot of these concepts together. What would you say works in terms of concepts from the private sector, from the artistic world, coming into government, especially when we think about the legislative arms?
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me today. I'm happy to be part of this extraordinary summit today. It's very important to talk about creativity, about music, about government role in creativity. So I am, as a pianist, my work in Parliament of Georgia, which is I'm representative of Culture Committee. We are doing a lot to reform cultural education, to have more accessibility for young people. And we have, of course, there's sometimes what we need in a state, of course, in parliament, more creativity, more leadership, and more ideas to have creativity, creative state, creative people who can help for the future, of course. That is, we are working on the law, which is very important law. We are decide political, cultural politics in the country. So, of course, this is very important to learn also from private sector, which is very, very different. Not, I mean, we are in state, we are here to respect the law. We are more, I mean, we are more thinking about the stability, and private sector is much more flexible, of course, for many things. And so, of course, we are talking about how to bring together these two sectors and to find the best way to collaborate and to have extraordinary results for the future.
Sharif, I want to turn to you about this point. We think about education, we think about the laws, when government is putting these things together, ultimately to help harness better creativity. So I want to ask you, from your experience coming at it from both design but also the private sector, how you think creativity can be fueled? What's the magic sauce?
That's a great question, and first of all, thank you for having me here. Pleasure to be here. First time in this in Dubai, and it's lovely. I think I'll respond to this both as a designer and an ex-athlete. I think actually competition really fuels creativity. And to be better, to find ways of doing something in a different way. And I think if you look at athletes and if you look at sports teams, the way you're competing is you find ways of being more efficient with your energy. You find ways of even innovating, doing something in a different way than your competitor does. That improves, you know, the quality of your performance, you become more effective, and as a result, your fans are happy. So in that sense, I think competition, a healthy, positive kind of competition, is actually really good for creativity. Similar thing applies to design as well. Arguably, you can say governments have competition among them. That could be true. But I think finding ways of creating a competition feeling within the government itself to improve things definitely has the potential to find a new way of working. Yeah.
Do we have enough competition in government arms?
You know, I think what we can learn from private sector is, of course, the more flexibility, because we are very much concerned by this law, by this rigidity maybe. It's not maybe exactly, but we have in state, we have to have more creative ideas for for create the law which is very adapted for the people, because the culture for everybody is very important. It's my slogan in Parliament. We are doing this law which will be very new for Georgia, and implementing period will be very difficult, I guess, but I also, I am of course in Parliament, but I am also private sector, because I was artist all my life. I still artist, and I see how this importance. For instance, if the ministry of the Parliament speaker of somebody which is important, the decision maker has a creative approach to the things, so that it could be successful story afterwards for the country.
Tell us more about this law, because you said culture is for everyone. The law will be for everyone. How do you create that parameter that actually allows for more creativity, allows for, you know, the arts to really be accessible for everybody? Tell us more about how you come about that, and also what from the private sector that you come from you're trying to introduce within the law.
Yes, private sector can have the idea. They can support the idea of ideas of innovation, to support and founding some new ideas, which is very important. And the state have to deliver and to take care about, absolutely, to take care about the accessibility. Accessibility, what this means, that's all people, who, for Georgia or for everybody, I mean, they have to have accessibility for art education, quality education, and not maybe everybody will become a big pianist or a musician, but they can touch easily this world, which is excellent, which makes all human being better, and I think it's very important how we can deliver this accessibility to art. In the villages, of course we need schools, we need of course the professors, which will be adapted for the new new world, because this is very much change, how to bring the young people to art and to music and to this sphere, which is very damaged after, you know, let's say COVID. We had many situations and the young people are very much, this is not easy task for us also, to create the law which oblige the young people to come to the art.
So thinking about who you're catering for, be it a law, be it design, what would you advise governments when they're thinking about who they're catering for? Is it about thinking of them in age, young or old? How would you approach it?
I think above all, I think in private sector, you think about your consumer first. As a designer in the industry that I'm working in, I think about the athlete first. And for the government, it's safe to say it's the equivalent is the citizen, right? But somehow there's a difference of approach when you think of it in these ways. I would say that maybe governments could benefit from seeing the citizen almost like the consumer, because when you look at your audience as your consumer, you do your best to serve them, and you look out for their interest. You try to understand them better. And they ultimately have the final decision. They ultimately have the final say. Again, easy to apply to sport. You have to understand the athlete's needs and how to make them perform better, how to make them achieve better things. As a result, that comes back to you as a win. So in that sense, if you think of the citizen not as a citizen but a consumer or the athlete, if you help them, in return it actually helps the government. So I think changing that mindset of seeing the citizen as the consumer almost actually gives them a power and therefore gives the government in return the benefit.
Can you imagine seeing the citizen as a consumer?
You know, I think I believe then policy or some new direction have to be absolutely approved in the government, because we are here to change something. And how to change? You need leadership. You need, once again, to have a creative approach to everything for the private sector. How we can combine and to find the way to work together and to have the better result. And this is very important. I think we have to also promote the new laws, of course, adapted for the private sector, because they have also their need, and they would like also to be promoted in these processes. So this is very important. I have hundred examples, for instance, how the private sector and state works together, for instance, for the festivals, for the education programs. In Latvia, for instance, we have a guidance country, Latvia, and I see how this processes of the education and this the policy, government policy for culture works together with the private sector.
Because what you're speaking about is also to make changes systematic, and also creativity being systematic, because most people, I have to say the UAE is different, but in many other governments, you don't necessarily think of imagination and creativity being part of public sector processes. How do you enable that? How can you help make governments more creative, imaginative? Yeah. And I'm going to bring you the same question. You have the advantage of a bit more time, Sharif, to answer the same question.
Let me think about it.
Mina, it's a difficult question. Thank you. It is a very difficult question, but you have to have the power to convince, you know. If you believe in something and it's, you really think it's important and you have this experience, I think everything is possible, even with the people who is very, very close and they don't believe in this some flexibility. But I think my case, it's very interesting for me, because how I can myself adaptate to these organizations as a parliament, which is a very, very strong, very serious, and nothing. You know, you have no too much space for flexibility. But I think when you know what you are doing, and when you know the importance of the change and creativity, so you can find the way afterwards to work with them.
That's great. Power of persuasion, is that what it takes?
Sorry.
Power of persuasion in terms of embedding more creativity and imagination in the public sector, as the son of two public servants?
Yes. I mean, it's of course the power of persuasion is huge.
One of the things, Sharif, I wanted to ask you about is this idea of feedback, because we can talk about enabling people who are creative and have imagination, but don't necessarily get enough feedback. How do you create feedback loops in order to inform?
Similar to what I said earlier, I think when you work with from my perspective, if I see athletes as my customer or my consumer, I would look into understanding them better, getting insights from them, and understanding their needs actually leads to more relevant innovation, as opposed to exploring in a field where, you know, you could go into infinite amount of territories, directions. So it helps you focus your attention in the right places. So I think in that sense, understanding who your customer is better helps you innovate with focus. So I think it's really important to focus on what those needs are.
I love what you said about relevant innovation, because we can all go and innovate, but it has to be relevant. And that, in some way, is part of also the public sector, making sure that it's relevant to everybody. That's when you're introducing a law, it's going to serve everybody. So keeping that relevance and making sure that it is grounded. I want to ask you both a question about what do you see today as the biggest challenge to creativity and harnessing creativity in the public sector?
Biggest challenge of creativity is, of course, understanding and knowledge, and to you know, I think it's also the approach, professional approach, is very important for everybody. because when you know about what you are speaking, what about you're speaking, you feel this not only you read somewhere in the book, but you feel and you know what is importance of this you are doing. That's once again, I think it is the main motivation, main motor of the everything. And you ask me about the accessibility for art for everybody. I would like to say you also for the children, they can't, not ability to walk, you know, the children which is a little bit ill and so, and we also think it about this children, they have not capacity to move maybe, and we have to deliver also the education to them, also to motivate them, and this is very important for the new world, for the new motivation, for the better world. So this is, I think, this idea to create this platform here, how to make world better. This is very important.
So education and accessibility are hugely important. Sharif, from a different perspective, how do you see the biggest challenge to creativity?
I would say from creativity perspective, time and space is the biggest challenge because if you look at whether you look at it from a government perspective or a private sector perspective, it's really easy to get lost in the problems of now because there's always so many things happening at the same time, and you just have to deal with urgent problems, unexpected things, and making things working as they're working right now. And then you have to still be creative to think about the near future and solve for problems that you're expecting or things that you're expecting to happen in a close timeline. But innovation really happens through thinking about the far future. And that requires time and space. And especially at a time like this where we're all dealing with multiple challenges that comes from all angles, it does become harder and harder to create that time and space to think about the far future. That is the ultimate challenge, because essentially innovation always feels like, or thinking about the future always feels like you can, you know, I don't have time for this right now. Let me, you know, we'll talk about it once we resolve this problem, you know. But in reality, you have to create that space to be able to focus on the future, or a team, you know, so that they can continue focusing on that and help you get there. You need that vision.
That's an incredible point to make about how do you deal with the immediate, but also keep your eye on the long term. How can you do that in Parliament or in government?
You mean Parliament? You know, Parliament is a decision maker of the policy, yeah, right? And this is the, for instance, if we, this law goes, for instance, for education laws goes now, we are in the end of this legislative processes. So we will have many schools in Georgia, everywhere. We will have innovating approach to the piano, to the violin. We will have new kind of professor which will be more creative for the children, and they will build new approach to the music, to the art, and so we are absolutely determined to do this. Will be very difficult processes, because the new world is very different from maybe 20 years ago. The world was not the same as today. So we have to be more flexible. That is these difficult things. Yeah.
So flexibility, crucial. Sharif, unfortunately, we're running out of time, so I'm going to give you the last word. If you had to give one piece of advice to government officials, those in the public sector, of what they can learn about embedding creativity in their work, what would it be?
Creating space, as I said, but space and freedom to explore. I think that's really important. And prioritizing the customer's needs. I would say focusing on those two would help to get you to a better future. And I would have to say also, I was invited here by His Excellency Omar Al-Ulama, and it seems like you guys are already doing it here, and it's really impressive to witness.
That's great to hear. Indeed, I have to say, in terms of imagination and creativity, nobody does it like the UAE, so it's really quite something. But it's wonderful to hear both of your perspectives. And I think as we close this session, to really think about the importance of the long term, of education, of fostering both laws, but also enabling factors like making sure that there is the time and the space to allow creativity to thrive at a time where, of course, we're challenged not only from geopolitics, geoeconomics, but also technological changes to keep abreast. So thank you both for two very unique perspectives. Thank you for your time, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.